I would generally speaking consider myself to be a pretty left-leaning individual. Like, most of the social issues, I'm like, yeah, sure, trans people, I don't know that I really care. Go do your thing. It would be nice if people had healthcare, wouldn't it? Like, I don't know, is that too much to ask for? But I can also recognize that I'm kind of a moron and I don't really know much about any of it, and that I kind of just operate on vibes. So I don't really talk about it that much because it's just like not really my lane. However, one thing that I've been able to observe over the past few years is that the right wing, like, media industrial complex is pretty insane. And weirdly enough, the Try Guys of all people were recently talking about this.
I've been thinking about infiltrating online spaces that are currently dominated by toxic dudes.
I've been thinking about that, but I don't know how.
Doesn't seem like that's our function.
No.
But the interesting thing watching this election is how much of it was won on the internet, how much of it was won through podcasts and YouTube videos, and how the internet is going right.
I mean, yeah, I don't think that they're wrong. Like, when I look at all of the big popular political commentators, it's like, I think of Ben Shapiro. I think of Joe Rogan. I think of people like Tim Pool. And I know that Joe Rogan and Tim Pool, they both say that they're not right wing, but I mean, like, they've been pretty vocally supportive of Trump. It's like, I don't know. I also get the vibes that most of the, like, centrists out there are just Republicans hiding their power level, but I don't know. I guess I could be wrong about that. And I don't know, man. It just doesn't really feel like there are very many left-wing commentators on, their level. And again, weirdly enough, the Try Guys really, like, touch on something that I very much agree with.
An interesting topic that was brought up to me in, like, a conversation I was in recently was Kamala didn't do Joe Rogan and she was invited.
And that was damaging.
And I think she should have done it. I think that she should have done it.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting because historically, we've been like, we don't, this is such a fucking backwards thing. If I say the wrong thing, whatever, I'm sorry. But it's like, historically, the Democratic Party and whatever has been like, we don't want those bad votes. And it's actually like, we do want those bad votes. We want it to be representative of a larger swath of people.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that that's a massive problem with, like, the left in general, in that they just like to sit in their little echo chambers and they just don't want to go out and debate other people of other persuasions. They're like, oh no, that guy's too toxic. Like, we can't engage with him. We can't platform him. I don't know. I guess he's just going to, like, mind rape our viewers and all our viewers are going to become Nazis and stuff like that. And then, like, when, somebody like Destiny, for example, debates Nick Fuentes, well, now Destiny's bad because he debated Nick Fuentes and now Destiny's a Nazi. And it's just like the fact that Kamala Harris was like, no, I'm not going to go on Joe Rogan, potentially the biggest platform that exists, like, in general, is insane to me. And do I think it's reasonable to think that Joe Rogan would have given her a much more challenging interview than he did Trump? I would argue probably, yeah. But, like, even still, like, you want to be the president of the United States and you don't think you can win a debate with Joe Rogan? And while I generally speaking agree with what the Try Guys are saying here, they pretty immediately made me realize that they are so totally and completely part of the problem.
Well, here's something I can relate it to our own experience.
Yeah.
Something that very much like that. And maybe we'll cut all this out. We have been invited on more than one occasion to be on the H3 podcast.
Oh, this is interesting, Katie.
And,
This is interesting.
and we have kind of never responded because we're like, well, I don't want our going on that podcast to be us saying that the
An
things on this
endorsement,
podcast are what we endorse.
Ethan Klein? And the H3H3 podcast is too extreme for you to want to associate your brand with? Like, I thought that we were having a conversation about, like, oh, well, maybe we should start, talking to more conservative leaning audiences, like, the Red Pillars, right? The Andrew Tates of the world. The Try Guys are so far back that they're having to debate on whether or not they would be willing to be on the H3 podcast? A podcast that is like extremely left-wing, very progressive. What are we even talking about?
I think if we went on there, we would probably sort of check them at every step that they present to us that is negative. But at the same time, at some point, we're going to joke and have fun with them.
What are these like radical right-wing extremist positions that you think you're going to be karate chopping and checking them on at every turn? Oh no, Ethan Klein is going to come at us with these extremely hateful rhetoric. Like, what are you talking about? I'm not going to lie. Stuff like this actually does make me a little mad. Because this kind of stuff, I feel like it just doesn't really happen on the right. It feels like everybody on the right is like in lockstep. It's like, yeah, we're going to work together to get Trump elected. And like, I'm not saying there isn't infighting on the right. You know, you have some like, I don't know, Steven Crowder is like abusive towards his wife, and you have people on the right debating on whether or not he was abusive. But it's like, at the end of the day, though, like, they're all going to go on each other's podcasts and they're all going to talk about how Trump is awesome. Whereas, like, on the left, we have this. We have Ethan Klein, of all people, not being left-wing enough or maybe being a little too edgy for the Try Guys to go on.
To try to reach some of those people and be able to, like, tell him to say something like, yeah, but you're putting on a character of being a douchebag.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You wouldn't actually have me on the show if you hated me, because why would I be here? So
Right.
you're like pretending to hate me because the type of entertainment you make is to put people down.
Ethan Klein had on, like, Fresh and Fit. What do you mean that he won't have on people that he hates? Like, what? Do the Try Guys just not understand what, like, debates are? Do they not know what confrontations are? Yeah, like, again, it's like, no wonder the right wing is winning the fucking political war, culture war right now. When this is the kind of shit that we have to deal with. When people on the left won't even go onto other left-wing podcasts. When they feel the need to, like, denounce Ethan Klein, of all people. Like, what? Like, it's just absurd. It truly is.
And more specifically with Ethan, he is someone who, we're both Jewish guys. We have different views about Israel and Palestine. He has said some really wildly hateful things about Palestinian supporters. And so I have a disagreement with him in views. And I think that's a conversation we could have, even though he comes at it from a place of wild diatribes.
That is such a bad faith, like, characterization about Ethan's current, like, drama with Twitch. So, like, for people that don't know, Ethan is upset with Twitch and a bunch of, like, Twitch streamers because he perceives them to have been saying and doing a bunch of hateful things towards, like, Jewish people. There was this TwitchCon panel where they had a tier list that was, like, Arab good and people that love Sabra at the bottom. It's a very obvious dog whistle for Jewish people. It's like, yeah, when a Twitch-sponsored event has a bunch of Twitch streamers on there that are doing a literal race tier list, it's a criticism against the race tier list. It's not a criticism of them because they're pro-Palestinian. We even have people like Hassan Piker endorsing terrorism.
He's the leader of Hezbollah, the general secretary of Hezbollah.
What's Hezbollah?
Hezbollah
Is that small guy?
Hezbollah is this is the same name.
Okay.
Hezbollah is a paramilitary organization.
Do we like them or no?
I think as a resistance group, they're pretty successful against Israel. I don't have an issue with them, let's just say.
And listen, whether or not you agree with Ethan Klein or don't agree with Ethan Klein, can we at least agree that just describing this situation as Ethan Klein said hateful things towards Palestinian supporters is, like, just an extremely bad faith way of describing the situation? But I mean, listen, I guess I can't be too upset about all of this because at least I'm like able to watch the Try Guys and the gears in their heads slowly, working, slowly realizing that, hey, maybe not engaging with the people that disagree with me is ultimately going to lead to all of those people never adopting my my worldviews. Pretty cringe that Democrats are realizing this now, after the election, after the guy that tried to steal the last election was just voted in again, meaning that the American experiment is basically over. Like, I don't know what the fuck we are right now, but it's sure as hell isn't America. It's kind of infuriating. It's kind of blackpilling that it's not until now that the Democrats realize that, oh yeah, we probably should have been doing something more than just sticking in our little bubbles and glazing each other dry, talking about how righteous we are without actually doing meaningful action to convince others. At least they are realizing it, I suppose. Anyways, let me know what you think about any and all of what we talked about today. Also, if you enjoy the content and you want to show a little bit of support, please feel free to become a member of the channel. I will be posting content there sometimes, although if I'm being completely honest, you really should just support it if you want to support me, because the content there isn't going to be on a regular basis. Okay? Don't have the bandwidth. But hey, if you want to show your support without giving me any money, cringe, but I understand it. Feel free to subscribe and comment down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.